starting here in just a minute. Welcome to WaveTalkers. And we're going to go live on Facebook. Hello, everyone joining us on Facebook. We're going to go live here in just a few minutes.
This is not your Neumann mic, is it?
No, this is not my Neumann mic.
You sound good. You sound good.
We should be going live on LinkedIn right now. And let me see, I've got to find, where's the right window for Vimeo. There we are. Go live. And we should be going live on WaveTalkers at that point. So let me come back over to here, come back over to this screen, which should be up there. And hello, everybody. Welcome to WaveTalkers Live. This is episode number 17. Today, we are talking about Winlink with VARA HF. It's been one of our most popularly requested topics is to talk about HF, and most all of us are in different locations today. I'm clearly out in the garage today, so I've got a completely different setup. So my mic may sound a little bit different today. With me is two of my distinguished colleagues today, KK6DA coming to us from Los Feliz in Los Angeles, and Dan NR6V coming to us from the San Fernando Valley. And our friend David W0DHG is out on assignment again this week. So what we're going to do is get started here. I'm going to move this over there, and my transmogrify trick doesn't quite work today with the setup that I have, but you should be able to see that. Let me see if I can advance the slide now. Am I even close to having the mouse on the right place? Let me see, where's my setup? Clearly, it's going to be a little tricky to drive this thing today.
Well, you're looking good.
And there we go. Okay, so if you would be able to send us a check-in, just open your Winlink up, send a standard Winlink check-in form. I'll demonstrate that here in just a second. Send it to all four of us, KK6DA, W0DHG, NR6V, and myself, W6AH, and also include the tactical call sign WaveTalkers. It's all one word, plural with an S on the end of that. And in the comment section, go ahead and tell us it's an exercise here. But in the comment section, the question for today is, for HF communications, you consider yourself to be completely new, a basic level user, an intermediate user, or an advanced level user. So let us know kind of how you work with HF, what you consider your skill level to be. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump over to the PC, and I'll do a quick little walkthrough of how to do that for folks who may not be familiar with it. So I've got my Winlink Express set up here. I'm just going to create a new message. Up here in the top where the select templates are, go ahead and click select templates. Come down here to the standard templates, click the little plus sign next to that. Come on down here to the general forms, click on general forms, and down near the bottom, you should find Winlink checkin.txt. Just go ahead and give that a double click. And if the demo gods are with you, it should open up in your web browser. You're going to want to fill this out, and this is really nice. You can just click on, say, date and time, and it'll automatically jump to the current date and time for you. Make sure you set that this is an exercise. Tell us what band and mode you are connecting from. We're going to go ahead and use Telnet for this portion of it, because if you're connected to the internet, you're watching us live, go ahead and use that. It's an easy way to get connected. You can put our call signs all in here along with the WaveTalkers. Your call sign, station contact, that's just your name. And again, your station call sign, your location, you can fill that in as what your QTH is. Make sure you give us your lat and long coordinates. And this is where you want to fill in the answer to the question of what type of HF user are you? Completely new, basic, intermediate, or expert? I consider myself to be pretty much somewhere in the basic to intermediate user. It's where I spend most of my time when I'm operating on ham radio. And but that's just me. Would love to hear from you what kind of level of user you consider yourself to be. Then go ahead and click the submit button. And when you do, it will automatically fill in the form with all the information. You can just double check that your to field is filled out correctly, post that out to your outbox, and then go ahead and send that via whatever method that you use with Winlink. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and check real quick, see if we've gotten any check-ins in. I'll just go up here to
long list.
Click start, and let's look at that. People are checking in from all over the place. I'll go ahead and download those for right now. Perfect. Download them again. Keep going. Keep going. Super fun.
In our discussion about Winlink HF, you want to be sure that you don't have these many messages on HF.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that would take quite some time. It is slower, of course, than VARA FM, but very efficient at the same time too with long distance communication. But you don't want to clog it up with 20 messages.
Break.
Yeah.
Go Mike.
You have a lot of users out there chatting that you need to open your screen up. I'm looking and I'm seeing all the presenters. You're not muted, so they're all showing up.
Okay.
Oh,
and that makes your screen very small.
yes. Thank you very much for that. Let me unpin the guys here, remove spotlight, and that's usually one of DH's
much better.
There you go. Sorry about that. Let me go back here and just point that out again. So new message. I'll point out here to the select template. I'll point out where that template is, standard message, general forms, and come down here to the bottom. There's that Winlink check-in. Double click it and it opens up your browser. That's all the information that we were just looking at. So you can see it a little bit bigger. And there we go. All right. So let's talk about today VARA HF. So let me go back over to, I'm going to go back over to the slides and let me see, am I even close to having the mouse on the right spot? I am. So this is the diagram. We've seen this several times throughout the series of what we're looking at. I'm going to make sure I'm continuing to admit folks. It looks like Dan, one of the guys are doing that for me. Perfect. So we've seen this diagram before. We looked at it last week. This week, we are totally going to build on the conversations that we had last week. So last week, we looked at ways of setting up your Winlink session to your radio to be able to send via packet and via VARA FM. That's going to be using VHF and UHF. We also looked at using the Telnet feature to send via the internet. So hopefully everybody has their Winlink set up at that point. Today, we're going to go from that point and we're going to keep going a little bit further. So I know it's going to be a little weird as I'm kind of turning around to look because I don't have all of my computers set where I can fully see everything where I'm all the way up on there. So, but what we're going to do today is we're going to look a little more at sending the communications via HF, via VARA HF specifically. And so we're going to focus on the yellow link here, which is going to go initially from the radio to the RMS gateway via VARA. We'll also look at doing peer-to-peer on HF as well, because you'll see how that works and comes into play. And don't really need an so when you click the open session button, it pulls down the screen of all of the different options for you. And this is what we looked at last week, VHF and UHF. We were looking at packet, Winlink, and we were looking at VARA FM. This is really for local communications that you're going to be sending this communications. It's generally limited to about 80 miles, but your experience may vary, certainly quite a bit, depending on propagation and your antenna configuration and so forth. Generally, this is all done on 2 meters or the 144 megahertz band, 70 centimeters for 40 megahertz, or the 1.25 meters to 20 megahertz. And that's all your kind of local communication, VHF, UHF. That's what a lot of us get started doing when we're doing emergency communications. Today, though, we're going to talk about HF, or high frequency, and this is oftentimes for out of area communication. However, you can do communication that's local using HF via ground wave, and we're going to also try and demonstrate that today as well. So the two types of or the two primary types of HF communication are going to be RDOP, which is basically packet. It's a replacement for the old WinMore. It's an update to that, and it allows for a little bit better communication speeds. And VARA HF, and that is what we're going to primarily focus on. There is a third option, and that would be PACTOR. However, if you have a PACTOR modem, you can do great with that. However, they are pretty expensive. So VARA is a software-based solution. You can use it without a license. However, if you do license your copy of VARA, David, what's the current going rate for VARA these days?
I think Jose charges around 70 for a full license. We have in the past done some group buys. We're not doing it at this time simply because this group is so large, but around $70. And that's for life. That's for life. That's for FM, HF, anything he develops in the future. It's well worth it.
And yeah, it covers all the VHF, UHF licensing for VARA, as well as the HF licensing for VARA. So you can use it without the license. Your speeds are just reduced a little bit, but that's what VARA is, and so that is what we're going to focus on today. HF communication is generally considered 6 meters to 180 meters. However, most of the stuff that you're going to be doing is really going to be somewhere in the 20 to 80 meter range. And it's also going to depend on there's two types of HF communication. There's really three types. There's ground wave, which I don't have listed here. There's NVIS or NVIS or NVIS or however you want to pronounce it. This is near vertical incident skywave, and we're going to talk about that. And then there is skywave, which is the more traditional, what we think of when we think of HF communication. And we're going to look at both of these today. So here's our simple model of the Earth, and we have our radio station that's set up here, and it's going to try and send some communication. Now, ground wave, you're just talking in your kind of local area, and the signal is going, it works just like VHF, UHF, it's line of sight. Here in Ventura, for instance, in the Oxnard Plain here, where we're kind of surrounded by mountains around us, we have pretty good ground wave communication between all of the stations that are here in the Oxnard Plain, and so it provides a nice way of being able to do that. Over in LA, where Dan and David are, they can work ground wave oftentimes throughout the San Fernando Valley because they're able to send that communication pretty clearly like that. Now, if you take your signal and you send your signal on a very high takeoff angle, so that your signal, instead of going out, it goes almost straight up, or goes as much straight up as you can get it to go, it'll oftentimes reflect right back down. It'll create this kind of bubble of HF raining down around you, usually in the range of about 30 to about 300 miles or so, where it's bouncing off the ionosphere and it's basically coming straight back down. Now, this is an excellent way. This is called NVIS, or near vertical incident skywave. People also pronounce it NVIS, or a variety of different ways to pronounce it. This is great for being able to get your communications. Maybe you've got a mountain range that's separating you and the other station that you're trying to get, or you're able to trying to communicate with other hams that are within your same state or in a region of states. We're going to do this today, where we're going to send peer-to-peer traffic between myself and KK60A. He's over in the San Fernando Valley, and there's a mountain range that's in between the two of us. So we don't have a clean line of sight between us, but we can bounce our signal straight up off the ionosphere and come back down and have that communication. Now, NVIS communication is really dependent on the band that you're operating on and the time of day that you're operating with. So it won't work necessarily all the time on all bands. Your experience is going to vary. And I'm going to show you a couple of tools that I use to be able to start to kind of gauge that, to get a sense of how my communication is working on HF. The other type of communication that's really common is skywave. And this is oftentimes what many of us think of when we think of HF communication. You're sending your signal out on a very low takeoff angle. It's sending your signal out. It's refracting off the ionosphere, and it's coming down at a distance of anywhere from really 500 to thousands and thousands of miles. The signal can also bounce off the Earth and the ionosphere, and it'll bounce for quite a far distance. And that's called skywave. So that's what we're referring to there. Oftentimes with skywave communication, you end up with this skip zone where it's right in between where your antenna is and where your signal comes down for that first bounce. Oops, I'm not sure why I just dropped out of that mode, but let me just go back into it. There we go. That's super helpful. Thank you very much. And of course, now I've got to click through all those slides to get back up to where I was. Yay, super fun. Let's come back up here, and there we are to this. All right. So there's that skip zone where you oftentimes won't have a lot of communication that's in between you and where your signal comes down at. Now let's talk about the antennas that you're going to use, and talk about the idea of how you're controlling the takeoff angle that you have. And one way to control that, let's say you're using just a standard dipole. If you have the dipole at a quarter wavelength above the ground, then you're going to have generally a pretty low takeoff angle. It's going to shoot your signal pretty far out, and it'll refract off the ionosphere, come back down. That's going to be your skywave communications. For NVIS, an easy way to do NVIS communication is just take your normal dipole, and instead of having it a quarter wavelength up off the ground, you just bring it down closer to the ground, down to a much more of a fraction of that wavelength. This becomes really easy to set up. And if you're operating on some of the bands like 40 meters and 80 meters, being able to get your antenna a quarter wavelength up off the ground is pretty difficult for most of us. However, for NVIS communications, just getting that dipole up maybe 15 feet, 20 feet or so brings that dipole down. You get a reflection off the ground, and it sends your signal more straight up, and you're able to get better NVIS communications with that. You also have different types of antennas will create those different patterns. So a lot of times for NVIS communications, I'm using either a mag loop. I've got a Chameleon F loop 3.0 that works really well for doing NVIS communications. I also have the Chameleon Tactical Delta loop. That's the antenna that I'm going to be using today. I've got it set up right out in my front yard here. It's a very simple antenna to be able to set up. It only takes both of those antennas only take about 5 to 7 minutes to be able to set them up and get on the air. The Tactical Delta loop, it's got a spike that just goes into the ground. It's got a little matching unit on one side, two 17-foot whips that come off of each side, and then a wire that connects the tops of the two whips together. And that's going to mostly send your signal pretty much straight up to be able to get that refraction off the ionosphere. David, KK60A, is using what is the antenna that you're using?
This is a diamond dipole. The brand isn't as important in this discussion as the simple setup of the dipole. I have an irregular lot, so this took some experimentation as to where to put it, but it is very happy in the backyard between two trees, and it is probably a story and a half up. Pretty low, but what is unique about it is that it's surrounded by other houses and trees, yet communicating 58 miles from central Los Angeles to Chris in Ventura County seems to be pretty routine. That's good to know.
Excellent. So for skywave communication, for there, you're using things like vertical antennas a lot. You're using your dipoles that are up, that are at about a quarter wavelength up. You're also using So for instance, when we set up our station out at Baker2Vegas, our portable gateway, we're going to be using a buddy hex for that. So we'll have it's basically a 2-element beam. And that's going to shoot we're going to have a nice low takeoff angle that's going to allow us to get connections to stations that are a lot further out. Is your communications only limited to one or the other? Well, generally, no. Generally, you'll have some low takeoff angle, even when your antenna is configured in an NVIS configuration. So it's going to be a blend of communications, and we're going to look at different ways, at least the ways that I use for determining that, for determining what your how far your distance is that you're communicating. So let's switch over to the PC that I've got here. I'll bring my camera back on here into the corner. And last week we got you, everybody should be set up with your basic Winlink setup. After you get Winlink up and running, you're able to send and receive messages via Telnet. The next step for getting configured up on HF is to download and install a copy of VARA HF. Now, I already have that. I have a browser window open here, and what you're going to do, you can just do a Google search for VARA HF. The first couple of links are going to be directly to the Winlink pages for VARA HF, but if you scroll down just a little bit on that search, you should find the website for Jose, which is Echo Alpha 5 Hotel Victor Kilo, and it's at rossmodem, ROSMODEM.wordpress.com, and you should find right here, VARA HF at 4.6.1, the high performance HF modem. Just go ahead and give that a click and download that file down to your computer. And it's going to go into your downloads folder. You're just going to install it the same way you do. We did the install of VARA FM last week, so you can watch that little bit of that episode last week to see what that looks like. Let me go ahead and minimize this. I'll bring up my Windows Explorer here. I'm going to go over to my C drive, and you can see that when you do the install, it's going to just create a folder right here on the root of your C drive. And it's going to just be called VARA. You can go ahead and double click on that after you've got it installed. And there's your VARA .exe. I'll just right click on that guy and say, let's do create shortcut. And I'm just going to drag that shortcut out here to my desktop. So that's a little bit easier to be able to get to my VARA. So I've got my VARA FM shortcut. I've got a VARA HF. And I've also added my VARA HF shortcut down here to my taskbar. I went ahead and did that already. Kind of like a cooking show. I got a few things like pre-baked here to make sure that things will run smoothly here, because it's a lot of setup to be able to get this stuff up and running. And notice that the icons for VARA, the FM and the VARA HF, are essentially the same icon. So that's a little bit confusing. I wish they had made the icons a little bit different just to get started. So the way that I tend to remember these, I put my VARA FM icon here before my Winlink Express icon in my taskbar, and then I use my VARA HF icon on the other side of it, and I just keep it arranged like that, so I always know which one is which.
That's a good idea. I like to rename VARA HF.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So
the shortcuts appear VARA and VARA FM. I rename it VARA HF. Then I know.
That's a good idea. So I'll just go ahead and do that as well. I'll just click one time on it, wait a second, click a second time on my shortcut, and I will name that, if the demo gods are with me, VARA HF. There we go, VARA HF.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. Super simple. So let's go ahead and look at the VARA HF. I'm going to minimize my RMS Express out of the way. I'll just go ahead and open up VARA HF. They are two different applications, so you want to make sure that you operate with them as completely separate applications. You can see mine is already set up, and it is operating here. I'm going to make sure it is set there. Actually, this is probably a good time to look at what my station is that I'm using here for today's demo. So I have my ICOM 7300, that is set up here. I've got the same micro PC that we set up last week for VARA FM and for Winlink. The station is running entirely on battery power. So I've got my 30 amp hour Bioenno battery. It's connected to Buddy Pole Power Mini at this point, and that's connected on this little battery connection right here. If I click the little select button, you can see outside of my garage, I have my PowerFilm solar 60-watt panels. And so right now it's like super cloudy out there. I'm only generating about 0.06 amps, so it's barely making any power. But you can see both the radio and the gateway are both the PC are both running off of the load ports 1 and 2. And then there's this USB port here, and that is driving my little small display that I have just off screen. So the entire system is running entirely on emergency power at this point. So
and what is it drawing, Chris? I think that's really a good example. Is it drawing 4 or 5 amps?
It is currently drawing on receive about 1.6 amps. You can see right here on the left-hand side. That is how much power is being drawn by the ICOM 7300, the micro PC, and the little display.
That's pretty impressive.
You'll be able to see when I do transmit that this does jump up to about 14 to 15 amps when I am transmitting, depending on the power. And if you crank the power all the way up to 100%, it'll draw up into the 20, 21, 22 amps if it really needs to. But the Buddy Pole Power Mini handles that just fine. The battery handles it. And anyway, so there we go. The sun just came out a little bit. We just jumped up to about 0.6 amps. When the sun is out in full, I generally am getting about 3.5 amps of solar power generation. So it works pretty well. All right, let me come back over here to the PC. So we can see everything is actually configured. And the same thing that we saw last week, where we had, you have to make sure that everything is plugged in. Same thing applies here when you're doing HF. So I'm going to come up here to settings. I'm going to go to the VARA settings. This is the first place you're going to go when you first load this up. You'll want to make sure that your VARA set up your TCP ports. Now, it defaults initially to 8300, and VARA, both of them are going to default to the same port, VARA FM and the VARA HF. Now, I like to be able to run both at the same time. Oftentimes, usually I'll have my VHF UHF radio connected onto my system as well. So I went ahead and I changed the port number here. You can make sure that it's going to work for you at a port that's going to allow to go through any of your networking equipment. I just changed mine to 8303, and that's on the command port. You can notice over here the data port automatically gets set for you. It just automatically assigns that, and it assigns that at 8304. And keep an eye on those numbers, because we're going to use those here in just a few minutes. Next, you've got a place for your VARA license. You want to make sure that you put your call sign in here, and then if you have a registered license for VARA, you can go ahead and just fill that here into the registration key. And down here at the bottom, one of the things that I definitely turned on is the CWID. This is required. And there's even a note when you hover over this. Is USA hams are forced to use CWID. So you want to make sure that you're doing that to make sure you're being legal here on HF. And I also have allow VARA check for updates via internet. That's a good idea to check, because there is a way to check your propagation and do your VARA checks all via the internet, as opposed to just doing it via HF. So it's a good idea there. And I do have it to accept 500 hertz connections, but that's about all that I have set up here on this. So we're going to go ahead and close that. Next, we're going to come down here to your settings and sound card. Now, last week, when we were looking at the VARA FM settings, we made sure that your VARA is listening and Winlink is listening to the correct ports inside of your radio. And once again, you want to set your device input. When you have your radio plugged in, most of the radios are going to show up, especially the ICOMs, are going to show up as USB audio codec. And because I've plugged and unplugged mine a few times, Windows decided to call it USB audio codec number 2. So you want to make sure that you have your device input, which is the microphone that's coming in. You want to make sure that's set to the correct port, and device output should also be set to the correct port. Again, USB audio codec in that portion. Now there's also a tune button and a drive level. And we're going to come back to this actually just a few minutes after we get into VARA HF, or go after we get into Winlink, because getting this ALC set correctly is one of the big places that people run into problems. And you want to make sure you can see the ALC is your automatic level control. The full range of this would be out to about here. It would be about 100%. What you wanted is down below 50%, where your ALC is peaking. This is often termed on some other radios level control. I think that's what yours is called, David, on your or is your on yours?
On my Flex,
on your Flex.
I don't even think it's labeled.
I thought you said it was levels, maybe.
It's called level. You're right.
Yeah, level. So, and what you want is really, you only want it about 20 to 30% of the range up. Otherwise, you're over modulating. It's like you're screaming into the microphone when you're doing your data transmission. And so you want to make sure that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Here's a good rule of thumb you can use. If you don't have an ALC meter or don't believe it, you just set your power level always to 100 watts maximum on your radio, and then back your ALC down until the power just starts to drop, and then you're perfect.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna close this. We're gonna come back to this in just a second.
So you would never want to set the ALC level to, if you're trying to do 100 watts, which is probably too much, you wouldn't want that thing to be pegging. You want it way down by half.
Yeah.
And in this case, it is so true, as we say so many times with these software packages and with Winlink, less is so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go ahead and close the sound settings here inside of VARA. Those are the only two places you're really going to make something, set anything different. And keep in mind that in that VARA setting, the TCP port that the command port is set to 8303. That's the one that I'm using. So 8303 on that. So I'm going to leave VARA running, and I'm going to come back over here to RMS Express. And what you're going to do is just come up here to the open session. Let me go ahead and just do another quick check of messages and try and clear that queue out. The more we can clear that queue out now, the better off we'll be when we go to actually do some transmitting. Love seeing all of the check-ins folks are sending in. That's super awesome.
That is a good list.
That's a good list. Look at them all coming in. Love seeing that. And we will be mapping those in just a little while. There we go. We're disconnected. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to come up here in my Winlink session where it says open session, click the little drop down here, and we're going to come down to VARA HF Winlink. We'll go ahead and click on that. And I'm going to open the session. And it looks something like this when it comes open. So what you want to do is first go up here to settings. And these first two are the places where you want to spend the most time. So the first one is your VARA TNC setup. So we'll go ahead and click on there. Your virtual TNC host IP address name, this will automatically be configured for you. If you remember from last week, 127.0.0.1. That means home. That means your local computer. It's a way to reference an IP address for that local machine. Next is your virtual TNC command port. Well, remember over here in VARA HF, I had mine set to 8303. Initially, it's set to 8300. I'm going to ahead and change that so I can run both VARA HF and VARA FM at the same time. So that's one of the places that I made a change. For session bandwidth, I went and changed that to 2300. And that's, VARA modem location. You can come down here, you can click in there, and you can type in the full path as to where your VARA modem is currently located. However, I just uncheck the box under here that says automatically launch VARA TNC when the session is open, because a lot of times I like to have VARA HF open. That's just the method that I use. So I go ahead and open VARA HF, then I open up my Winlink session. So I don't have to worry about getting multiple copies launched or anything like that. I'm controlling it over here. So you can just uncheck that and then click the update button. Next, we're going to come back up here to settings. There we go. It does a little disconnect and reconnect. I'm going to come back up here to settings. I'm going to go down to radio setup. And now you're going to plug in the information for your radio. And this is where it's going to vary quite a bit depending on the radio that you're operating with and what you're using. So for me, I'm using an ICOM 7300. So I just click the little drop down here and select that radio from the list. There are a lot of radios that are supported right out of the box in here. So go ahead and find your radio. Go ahead and select it. You can choose to select an antenna. For the ICOM address, now if you're using an ICOM 7300, this is something that threw me. It initially says 00, and we're going to go and look at where that is noted. So every radio, the ICOMs have an address that's built into them for their CIV, so that they can be communicated between the computer and the radio, and so let me actually switch over to that, switch back over to here so we can have a look at where that is. So if I come over here to the menu and I click on menu, there's 2 pages on the menu. Many of us are used to being on this first page if you're using an ICOM. Click on the set button and you can come in here to connectors. Go ahead and hit on connectors. I'm going to jump back up to, is it on connectors? Yeah, it's in connectors. There. You're going to go down to about page 3 of 4. You'll find your CIV. This is your the way that everything is talking. So many of us will think, oh, the CIV address is 94H. And this is one of the things that messed me up so many times when I was setting this up, because I come in here and I look, my CIV address is 94. I'm not going to change that. And I think, oh, that's what I've got to do. I got to go into my Winlink and I got to change that to 94, and it won't talk. It won't work. The reason is because that's the CIV address of the radio, but what you're looking for is the USB remote control transceive address. That's, notice, 00. So it's already set to that. So there's actually 2 addresses that are in here, and this is the one that we're looking for over here in Winlink in that setting. So you want to make sure that that's set to 00. The next one you want to make sure is you're set to USB digital. And I'm going to go, let me cut back over to here. I'm going to just back all the way back out of here. Now, when you're running digital modes, for all of these, you're going to be using the upper sideband, regardless of the band that you're operating on. And you should have that little D next to it. So when I tap on that, you can see I've got a data mode or just my regular sideband mode. So if you don't see the dash D, you can just turn on your data mode and it should work there. Go back over here. Go through a few more settings. Radio control port, so serial port to use. So mine is currently set to COM4, and you want to make sure that you have the correct COM port set up. So I'll check that by coming down here, click on my little start menu. I'm going to just type in device manager, DEV, there, it starts typing in device manager. I'll click on that. I'll open up my device manager. When you're looking in here, you scroll down, you should find the ports located. Go ahead and click on ports, the COM ports. And what you're looking for is that Silicon Labs. This is on for an ICOM, and you can see it's connected to COM2. One of the other things that I guess I skipped on here is make sure you have the drivers installed. If you don't have the drivers installed for your radio, none of this stuff is going to work. So you're going to want to just do a Google search for your radio. So for instance, I did ICOM 7300 drivers for Windows 10, because that's the version of Windows that I'm running here. And it took me to the ICOM site. I could get the drivers, I could download them, install them, and then you see the Silicon Labs You may need to unplug your radio, plug it back in, or reboot your radio. Just simply power cycle it, turn it off, turn it back on again, and it should come up. And you should see down in the COM ports, you should see the COM port that you're using for your radio. So select that, and there we go. That's the one I'm going to use here. And you set the baud rate. Now I'm setting my radio control port to 9600 baud, and I have both the RTS and DTR options checked there. For the push to talk port, this is optional. Serial port to use, I've got my ICOM 7300 selected, and it will automatically detect that. So I'm going to say update, and it should go ahead and update. Since I've got everything set up within my radio, I am getting communication. Very briefly, I'm going to go back over to the radio setup here. And I want to click on the settings, and I'm going to go back into my connectors because I want you to be able to see the settings that I have that are for all of these. Now, many of these you won't need to make any adjustments for, but I'll just bring these up so you can see them. I've got my ACC USB select output set to AF for audio frequency, ACC USB AF output level set to 50%. USB AF squelch is off. USB AF beep speech is set to off. Go down to page 2. The first 3 here are all 3 set to 50%. Data off mod, I've got it set for mic and accessory port, or ACC. Down here, data mod is set to USB. External keypads not used. My CIV, will go into those in just a second. USB serial function is set to CIV. And USB is set to send and keying. So let me go back up one screen. We're going to go into the CIV settings. I'm starting on page 1 here. The baud rate, I've got mine set to auto. CIV address is 94H. Transceive is on. CIV USB remote transceive address 00. Come down a page. CIV output for antenna is off. USB port is unlink from remote. USB baud rate is auto. USB echo back is off. And that's all of those. Back out. And I think that's all we need to set in any of these. Yeah, to get those. All right, so that's all of my settings that I've got in here. Once you get everything kind of set up, you've made any changes that you need to, go ahead and you may want to just go ahead and close your VARA session and open it again. I'm going to close that. I'll open it back up one more time. And you should see this successfully connected to VARA TNC. That means it's talking over to your VARA HF. And you should also see that it's talking to your radio. It's using the ICOM 7300, COM4, 9600 baud, and it should be ready to go at this point. Once you get a good solid connection, one of the things that I like to do then is I'll go ahead and I'll test this by selecting who I want to communicate with. So I'll come up here to the channel selection option here at the top, click on that. And you may or may not see anything in this graph or in this chart initially. This is looking at current propagation levels, and you want to go ahead and update this. So right here at the top, there's an option for update via the internet. Go ahead and click on update via internet. And what it's going to go out, it's going to check from your QTH, and it knows what your QTH is, either from your GPS or from your grid square that you'd entered into the Winlink settings. And so this just takes a second, and it's calculating, it's using the Voice of America, I believe, some of the propagation tables, and it's calculating out what are the likely best bands and connections that you can likely get right now at this time. And I'll go ahead and scroll down. I've got to wait for this now. I'll push the update button. It takes just a second for this to run its propagation update. Let's look at some of the information while we're here looking at it. So on the left-hand side, it tells you the call sign, and it starts at the most likely path reliability. So W6BI, and notice it's got 3 frequencies for W6BI. It's got an 80 meter, a 40 meter, a 20 meter frequency. So this is a station that's set up on multiple bands at the same time to allow connectivity. It tells you the mode, the center frequency. It tells you the mode that station is operating on, the grid square that they're operating from, if they've got specific hours that they're operating for their station. You can see those operating hours there. The group, remember when we did our setup, this is the group is either public or you may often find some of these that will say MCOM. It'll tell you the distance between your location and that gateway, the bearing. So if you've got a directional antenna and okay, in order to be able to reach the station, I should set up a bearing of say 90 degrees from my current location. And then the path reliability estimate and quality estimate. Now, if I scroll down in this list, you can see that we go from green on both, meaning this is likely a good station I can get to. We go to yellow, which would be the next level down from there. Every now and then you'll start to see a few reds. And then eventually, if you get further down, you'll get all red, where you probably are not going to be able to get a path between you and that other station. You still might, but propagation is suggesting that you probably are not going to get a reliable path there. So I'll come up here to the top, and I'm just going to I'm going to check a station. I know AJ7C. I should be able to actually. I think Mike's in here. XEBC, is that XE2BC? That's you, right, Mike? Let me see if I can get a path over to you. So I'm going to turn that camera off, and I'm going to turn this camera on. So you should be able to see my radio here. And I'm just going to go ahead and double click on this station. And it will, if the demo gods are with us, and of course, I didn't do something. I'm going to turn off my radio. I'm going to turn my radio back on. Because when I change this over, it should have automatically made that setting change. Oh, it did. I just didn't click on the right name, channel selection.
Break.
Yeah, go ahead.
XE2BC is currently in operation with KK62CV.
Okay.
At a time.
Okay. I can check another station here. There it goes. It changed it. So every now and then this happens to me where I'll go ahead and I'll select a channel by just double clicking it, and I'll get information that'll fill in here, but it won't change my radio. I'm not sure exactly why. So I just go ahead and turn the radio off, turn it back on, and go back into it, reselect it. And then you should see that it should do the whole cat control. It should be controlling my radio and doing that. And I can turn the volume up so I can listen. And so I know Mike is saying that there's already a station who's communicating on there. So I'm not going to interrupt that communication. So let me go to a different channel. Let me come up here and let me try AJ7C. Just double click. And if the demo gods are with us, there we go. You can see here, it's going to fill in the call sign of the station here in this first blank. It'll set what the center frequency is, and that's the one that's coming right off of that station. So it's 7102. This is in kilohertz. Notice it's saying that right there. And then it's going to show you what the dial frequency. So I can see the dial frequency for connecting to AJ7C is going to be 7100.5. And if I look over on my ICOM, you can see that is what my dial frequency is set to. So the center frequency is here. This is the one you're going to set. It's going to automatically change this for you. It's going to tell me what the bearing is and the quality level. And let me go ahead and I'm going to click the start button. So hopefully we will get a connection to AJ7C. And I'm just going to go ahead and abort that once we see that we've got a connection. So I'll hit start. I'm listening. I wasn't really hearing anything. You can see we are getting some communication. We can see we're transmitting. We've got our signal going out. I can come back. You can see right now Winlink has it started a session here. I'll click over here, and we should see some of that VARA communication traffic that's going on. I'm connecting at about 82 bits per second.
And Chris, I see your signal 58 miles away.
Oh, very nice.
And I hear it as well.
Oh, cool. So I do have a solid connection at this point. At that point, I'm going to go ahead and just abort this because I'm not going to try and use up bandwidth and time for it to try and download a connection to here. But I do know now that I've got a good connection to AJ7C on this band. So one of the things that I'm going to do right away, let me go ahead and change back. Oops, not that one. Let me change to this camera and turn that off, turn that on. There we go. Now you're seeing me and you're seeing that. So one of the things that I'm going to do right now, because I know I've got a good path to this other station, is I'm going to add this to my favorites. So I'm just going to come over here and click on add to favorites. And it's going to say, yeah, are you sure you want to add AJ7C to your favorites? And it's going to pop it right here into this little drop down menu. So I've got the stations that I know that I can reach. And this is really important for emergency communicators because you may want to test some stations that you're able to connect to from a distance. And once you know you've got a solid path to them, then go ahead and just save that as a favorite because you may not be able to operate from your home QTH. You might have to go somewhere else and you might not have internet connectivity. So by having a couple of favorites set in there, you would be able to, you have a station that you know roughly where they are with the antenna that you're using. And so if you go to another kind of regional area, you can more than likely still hit that station. When we did the great shakeout and I moved to another location to be able to operate from, we didn't have access to the internet. And that's exactly what I did. I have a station on the 17 meter band that I know I can reach in Texas on a pretty regular basis. And so I just went up, drew up my favorite for that station and was able to make a connection from the other location. And then I could download an updated table that would have some more propagation connections for me from there. So that's what that favorite's for. And it's really helpful to be able to do that and to be able to send those types of communication. But how do you know where you're likely to be able to make a connection from? What I like to do, before I do that, once you get your settings set right in your radio and you've got good communication between your computer and your radio, you want to save that as a preset in your radio if you can. Now on the ICOM, if I switch back over to this rig view here, on the ICOM, if you go into the menu, you go over to page 2, there's a presets menu here. You can click on presets. And what I did is you've got a couple of presets that you can create. Once you get your radio set up, you can just click and press and hold on one of these, and you can save your current settings as a new preset menu. And then you can go in and name that. And when you save that, you're given a choice of all of what preset name you want to use. So I'll call this the demo settings. And now I'll know which one to go through and delete later. So that one's called demo, and you can page down through here. So I'm going to set the mode, the filter, set all of these different settings here. Just scroll all the way down to the bottom, 8 pages of them, and you can click right and say yes. And now I've got a new set of settings. So if I'm doing normal operation, I can just change to my normal voice mode of how I'm operating. And if I click out of here, you can see I'm on the 40 meter band, but I've got my lower side band. I'm not in the digital mode. I want to go to send some Winlink traffic at this point. So I'm just going to click on the menu. I'm going to go back to my presets and I can go to my demo. Boom, look at that. And I'm automatically, all the radio settings are all now set up for Winlink traffic. So I have those settings in there. And one of the settings that comes with a recent firmware update to the ICOMs, if you come in here to presets, and there's one already called FT8. And I find this one incredibly helpful for a variety of different reasons. And we're going to look at that right now. So I'm going to say, okay, go ahead and use the FT8 settings. Oftentimes I have to reboot my radio at this point. I'm not sure why, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But let's see if it works for us. So I'm going to switch back over to my PC, and I'm going to step out of VARA, and I'm going to step out of Winlink for just a minute. Go ahead and close those. There we go. And I've got WSJTX installed here. And if the demo gods are with us, we'll go ahead and click the little drop down here. Maybe we'll go to the 20-meter band. And yeah, of course, see, it didn't, oh, it did jump. It changed, but I'm not getting the, go to configurations, make sure everything is set right here. There's my radio, everything's set right there. My audio set to the USB codecs. And I'm just not getting my communications. So I will turn off the radio, turn it back on again real quick. It should be doing the cat controls here. There we go. Now I've got my green lights. Okay, so I've got FT8 running in here. And what I want to do is I'm going to go up here to mode, click the drop down button for mode, and I'm going to come down to whisper. And this is a great way to figure out, is everything working properly for your type of communication that you want to do. And this is something that you want to do kind of at your home QTH, is you're really learning about propagation and how it's working. So a little bit about whisper briefly. It's on a little bit longer. It's a 120-second refresh cycle. So I'm not going to go through the whole like who's hearing me when I transmit. But what you can do is you can just check the box to say transmit on next. And you should have communication between your radio. You should see it's set on the correct frequency. So I'm on the 20-meter band. You can see over here it's at 14095.6, and you see on the radio it did change it over to 14095.6. And if I was to let this go ahead and run, I can let it go ahead and I'll skip going and do it because I'll show you on the other way to how this is going to work. What it would do is on the next cycle, once this little green bar gets to the end here, it would start transmitting a whisper signal and it would go out. This is only going to be I would do this at about 5 watts or something. And this is just making sure that your radio is transmitting out. Other stations are hearing you. And the way to be able to check that once you set those, once you go through a full cycle of that, is you can open up your browser and you can go to WhisperNet, WSPRNET.org. Go ahead and sign in. You can go over to the database, and you can put in your call sign right here. I'd put in my call sign of W6AH, and you can also put in the reporter. And I'll go ahead and select both of those in there. You can set it to listen to all bands, all modes. Go ahead and show me all of those, hit update, and we're not getting any right now because we haven't let it run for a full cycle. Because I'm connected to the internet though, once this cycle completes, then my radio or my PC should start uploading all of the stations that it's hearing. And it'll also upload, once I do a transmit cycle, all of those stations that are hearing me would upload as well. And so you would see a bunch of data that's coming in. I'm gonna hit refresh, and hopefully I'm hearing somebody on this band here in just a second. You'll see them populate in here. You can also click on the map over here, and these are stations that are all on the air right now. And you can click and drag around on the map, and you can see who's hearing you. By coming down a little bit further, you can add some filters, just put in your call sign, and then you're able to get a pretty good map of seeing roughly where your station is communicating out to and who you're hearing. So you can start to get a sense of the distances that you're able to transmit on. Another way to check that, now Whisper is a super high signal to noise ratio or low signal to noise ratio application. So you can be heard at a very long distance. So this is really just, are you being heard and can you transmit? Next, what I would oftentimes do is I would come back over to FT8 and I would change it, or I'd go to come back to WSGTX and I would change it to FT8. I'd wait for a cycle where I'm hearing a station. It should come back up here. It comes around again on the guitar. And these are all stations that I'm hearing. So let me try and just do a connection to one of these stations. I'll pick somebody who's, let's see. N9OY. Let's see if we can hear them. We're hearing them at a pretty far distance. So I'll just go ahead and double click on them, and I'll see if I can get a connection. You can see that my radio did automatically go into transmit mode. I've got good digital communication between my radio and the PC, and I'm sending out just that one ping, and I will turn off the transmit. So hopefully I only need one. And if they come back, we'll go ahead and answer the QSO. And they didn't come back. Perfect. Excellent. But I did send out a ping. So let's see if anybody was able to hear that transmission when it went out. So I'm going to go back over to my browser. And now I'm going to go into PSK Reporter and click on the map for PSK Reporter and enter in your call sign for the filter. And I've got this set to about 1 hour, and I'll hit the go button here. And hopefully somebody heard me. I may need to do a longer cycle. Looks like I got to do a longer cycle. Let me do another one. Make sure somebody's hearing me. Go ahead and transmit that one. We'll make sure we get a clean signal out. There we go. Now we're getting our transmission. FT8 is nice because it's just a 15-second cycle that goes from one to the other. So now we should be putting out some RF there. Come back over to PSK Reporter. There we go. We got at least one pin. So somebody heard us. Maybe do another cycle so we can see a few more pins here. And I'll start to zoom in a little bit. So you can see there's a station right here who was able to hear me. That's K7, KR7RR. That's 2 cycles. There we go. A few more stations are hearing me now. And turn off the transmit there. So what you can start to see after you run this for a few cycles, you'll start to see the pattern as to where your HF antenna is getting its signal out on a particular band. Now I'm using the 20-meter band here, and you could do this on several different bands in order to get a better sense of where your antenna is being able to transmit to and from. So those are a couple of tools that I use for doing this. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to close FT8. I'm going to minimize my browser. And let me go back to my correct preset. Over here, I'm going to go back to my Winlink preset. Yes. Close that. I'll go ahead and power cycle my radio just for giggles. There we go. Back over here, and I'm going to launch my VARA HF. There we go. We've got communication coming in, and I'm going to launch my RMS Express. All right. So here we go. There's our VARA HF. I'm going to send a message. I'm going to create a new message here, and I'm going to send this message to KK6DA. KK6DA. I'm going to say send pizza.
No, I've had too much.
No, this is for me. You're gonna send me a pizza.
Okay.
Please send pizza. Now I know that KK6DA and I do not have a clean path between us on FM because there's a mountains in the way. And I could send this through a gateway. We could go through one of the gateways that we've gotten connection from. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to send this message directly to his station using peer-to-peer. So I've got my message set up here, and I'm going to set this send as, click the drop down. Instead of sending it as a WinLink message, I'm going to select peer-to-peer message. So I'll go ahead and select that. And now I'll post it to my outbox. So my outbox refreshes. I've got one message sitting there in the outbox. I'm going to come over here to the open session on VARA HF, and I'm going to go and click that button.
Peer-to-peer.
we're going to go into peer-to-peer. And so right now I'm set up for operating with a gateway. So what I want to do is I get all my connection information here. I'm going to come up here to switch to peer-to-peer session. Go ahead and click on that. And now we need to agree on a frequency and that we're going to operate on. So for the Baker2Vegas race, we've published a list of the frequencies that we're going to be operating on, and we're going to use those for this. You need to make sure that you enter in, if I'm going to be the one who's going to initiate this sequence, you're going to put that station's call sign in here. So I'm going to talk to KK60. I've entered their call sign in. Then you want to enter in the center frequency. Now, this is the center frequency that we're going to be using. Notice it's in kilohertz. So 7,102.500. And when we enter this in, it's going to automatically set our dial frequency to the correct thing. And if I turn my camera off, I turn this back on, you can see that it did, in fact, set my center frequency to 7101.0. So now if we were on VHF, I could either send them a message and say, hey, I'm about to transmit to you. Are you ready over there? Are you ready?
Ready.
Ready. All right. So we're going to see if this is going to work now. So this should be an NVIS connection where the signal should go straight up the ionosphere and back down. So if the demo gods are with us, if I click start.
Yep, I'm hearing you fine.
You are hearing me fine. Excellent.
We should be connected that fast.
There we are. It's calling KK60A. There we go. Or we've got a peer-to-peer VARA connection, KK60A. And let me move this window off to the side here. We can see here's our little VARA window. Try and move this down here.
Pretty slick.
Pretty slick. It's going right there between our two stations. And if the demo gods are with us, you should get the pizza message over there.
I am, by the way, sending back to Chris at about 61 watts. We did a tune test the other day, and I was way overdriving my signal. I was thinking I wanted to be at 100 watts, so I was setting it to really pump out far too much, backed it off, and it became much more accurate in its transmission. It's such a good example of where less is more. You don't want to overdrive it.
Yeah, and so if I click back over here, you can see here I'm when I'm transmitting. Watch my ALC when I do transmit. You can see it's only going to about 30 to 40% of that range, and that's really important. Oh, it looks like we're maybe finished. Did it finish?
You are.
We did. Okay, great. So let me show you how you check that and adjust that ALC level on here, because it's how you're driving it through VARA. So once you have your VARA set up, you have your peer-to-peer session set up, you come back over here to VARA, you click on settings and you go to the sound card. It'll bring this back up. There's that tune option. Now I'm just going to listen here, make sure that there's no other traffic going on. And then I can click.
Yeah, I think there is somebody else on the frequency. Do you hear them?
I can hear it.
Well, Chris, if you don't hear it, then you're fine.
Yeah, I don't hear them over here.
Okay.
Oh, there they are. Nope, there they are. They're in there. So I can make an adjustment to the frequency that I'm on. So let me close. Let me come back over here. Change it to maybe 7.
This is an example. So many times people will step on each other. It is so important you listen for a clear frequency. If it's not clear, don't start a transmission session.
Yeah, notice when I change my center frequency, I just changed it to 7099. It automatically changed my dial frequency, and it automatically changed the radio for me as well. So I can listen here. I'm not hearing any traffic there. So let's come back over here to the tune. And if I press the tune option, you can see on my radio, it goes into transmit mode right away. And there's my ALC, and it's right there at that level. So it's pushing out. Now, if I had this turned all the way up, look what happens as I turn that all the way up. My ALC jumps up to a much higher level. And this is basically the same thing as getting way too close to the microphone. So I'm going to just going to dial that back down. And for me on the 40 meter band, I know that it's right around minus 11 dB when my ALC ends up being right around here. That's right around the 20 to 30% range of the total amount. So
Chris, is it band specific? That may change depending on the HF band you work on.
I find it does a little bit when I'm on different bands. If I go over to say the 20 meter band, propagation may work a little bit differently. What you also want to do is make sure that your radio is tuned up. I'm finding that with the LDG tuner that I have, it's supposed to automatically jump to a new tuning, but I find sometimes that I need to just hit the tune button sometimes and make sure that the radio, if I'm not using a resonant antenna, is tuned up for the band that I'm transmitting on.
Yeah, and Mike has reminded us in the chat, run your radios at full power, back ALC off until power just starts to drop. This gives linearity to your signal and you're not overdriven. All radios are not equal, so use ALC to control RF.
Yeah, so for my rig, the way that I have mine configured, you can check on the ICOMs how much power you're putting out. You can press the little multi-connect knob. I've got my RF power set to about 49, or roughly about 50% of the transmit power. And that's mostly also because of the antenna that I'm using. It doesn't like digital to be driven on the tactical delta loop. It doesn't like to be driven above about 50% or about 50 watts. So I have mine dialed back to there. You can actually start to continue to dial this back to find that more optimal setting for you. But you really don't need a huge amount of power in order to make good connectivity all over the place. And I'll turn that volume. Now you can have your volume turned down on your radio so you don't have to listen to the traffic, but it is a good idea to have it turned up just enough so that you can hear when there's any traffic that's going on. Let's see, other things that you may want to talk about. Actually, Mike, what did I forget? Filters. Make sure your filter width. I have my filter width set to 3 kilohertz. That's what I'm doing there. Still got people coming in. Let's see, what else? I make sure when you're running, if you're running an ICOM, whenever I'm doing the digital modes, I tend to make sure that I'm not necessarily just in the scope view. I make sure that I'm in the meter view because that's really helpful. You can still see your scope and you can see your ALC. You can watch your SWR, see if that's getting up too high. You can have a better view of of what's happening with your radio in this mode when you're trying to do some digital mode transmissions. What have I forgotten, guys?
You have been very thorough as usual.
And I've gone over time again. Look at that.
You know, and I think one thing that we have not said, although it's implied, is that this sort of communication, which is not across town, but is across your state or across the region, is so important for us in Southern California. I sit and live, and I'm speaking to you right now from what's called the Hollywood Fault, which is a cousin of the San Andreas Fault. And if that thing decides to act up, we may lose communications locally, but if we're able to transmit our status or a resource request or something, let's say to Phoenix or to San Francisco or to Washington State or to Las Vegas, that's golden. And this is how we use this in emergency communications. Or for that matter, and Mike, maybe you want to chime in, if you have a major disaster like Puerto Rico, this is the way we communicate.
Right now, I'm connected to you point to point, sir.
You're connected to me. You're connected to
KK6DA.
Oh my gosh, you certainly are.
Can you bring that up on the screen?
I can hear it.
Yeah, I can't, Chris. It's on another machine without. Oh, you got a good signal. We can listen to you though.
During the Puerto Rican hurricane a few years ago, I would have loved to have had VARA available, but all we had at that time was Winmore.
Very nice.
And Winmore was pretty weak protocol. If we would have had VARA, we could have operated more effectively.
Yeah.
And but everyone needs to keep in mind that VARA bandwidth is the VARA speed is adaptable. The bigger the message, the longer the connection. You can see your speed go up and down, adapt according to band conditions. Right by watching the meter on your VARA monitor. Most people connect like a while ago. The biggest reason, Chris, you could not connect XC2BC, I will not say the guy's call sign, but he was connected sending the 57K file and he never got above about 270 bits per second.
Pretty
A good
amazing.
operator will stop when they realize that they don't have a good solid connection, try again later or move on.
Yeah.
Okay. And a point to understand about the Winlink network is if you connect to an HF gateway, I don't care what mode it is, let's say you connect and you get about 2K of your message through, you disconnect, you go to another gateway, your message will start from where you left off and recompile. You don't have to.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's good to know.
So you can go to XC2BC, start to download about 5 KC and you realize it sucks, the band is bad. So you go to AJ7C, which is better, and you get the rest of the message, but it'll pick up where you left off. It does not work on transmit, only on receive, and does not work in the point-to-point world.
That is really good to know.
Yeah, it is. It's fabulous thinking and planning and design. It really is. Mike, I'm going to guess we're 130 miles apart.
More or less, and I'm on a vertical 40 foot up, and I do sit on a hill.
Right. And I have on 40 just a simple dipole working pretty well. What's your antenna setup?
It's a 40 foot vertical.
I'm really impressed. We're probably, I don't know, Chris, would this be NVIS?
Probably 130 miles. Yeah, that's probably NVIS. I mean, he's on a vertical, so verticals generally don't do as well on NVIS. So you must be there must be some kind of a path that you've got.
Well, very strong signal. Thanks for doing that, Mike.
Yeah, and I'm using the ICOM 7300 with this built-in tuner, and it works very well.
Yep.
Yeah. Now that's actually something that he had mentioned to me about mine. And so let me bring this back up. Some people may not be aware, but when you're running the ICOM 7300 and you're just running it in normal mode, the built-in tuner will make up an SWR of about 3 to 1, I think is the range for the built-in tuner. However, if you click on the menu button, you go over to set and you come all the way down to the very bottom down here to other. You can tap on other, and on the very bottom option, there's an option for emergency. You can tap on emergency, tap the button for tuner, and it says, hey, this is going to expand out to the maximum range that the tuner is able to. Make sure your output is limited though to 50 watts. Never get close to the antenna. Great. Okay. So we'll say, okay, it's set on that. Now it's saying, hey, restart to set this into the emergency mode. I'm going to tap on that restart option. And you can see now on my boot up screen, it told me very quickly that, hey, I was in the emergency mode. And it also tells me up here in the upper left, it's got the orange little tile here with the E that's letting me know that it is in the emergency mode. Now you want to make sure that your power is set down below 50%, so that you're down under 50 watts. And now if you press the tune button, you can use the internal tuner and it will tune an antenna with quite a bad SWR in order to get you into a mode where you are able to transmit. And it works remarkably well. And with VARA HF on using Winlink, you really don't need a whole lot more than the 50 watts of power. You can do really quite well with just that. So in order to get out of the emergency mode, you just reverse that process. You go back to the menu, go back over to set where it is other, come down into there, go back to emergency. You can see it's still set. I'll just uncheck that, and then you're getting given the prompt to restart to set. I'll hit the restart button. It will reboot my radio.
Really cool. Do I have that on the 705 or is that a 7300?
No, well, the 705 is already so low power. No, you don't have a broadband tuner.
Yeah.
Right.
But Chris, a quick note, and I'll
Yeah.
shut up. All 18 gateways I manage in Mexico, Caribbean, South America, they all run emergency mode. They're all 7300s, and they all handle a large amount of traffic from
Wow.
quite some distance. Each gateway uses the same antenna you have, which is the MCOM2, and they run emergency mode 50 watts, and the average range of each gateway is about 2,500 kilometers.
That's amazing.
Enough for you.
That is just amazing.
That is so good to know.
I'm going to go
Thank you,
back.
Mike.
I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to open another session window. Dan, you want to send me a quick message? Let me go back to VARA HF.
Chris, you want to unpin me?
Oh yeah, let me unpin you. Sure. And remove the spotlight because I wanted to look at what my radio is actually pushing out when I do transmit. Dan, were you able to send a message to me?
Not yet. My Winlink was beeping at me. So
okay. So I'm going to open a session here. I'm just going to connect to AJ7C, and I'll just do a quick check because it will adjust on the transmit here, see if any messages have come in, and I'll hit the start. And when I cut back over, you can see on transmit here, this right-hand side, the power consumption is jumping up into the 12, 13 amps when it is transmitting down at 50 watts. So you can see how much power is being drawn when that's happening, when you are in transmit mode as opposed to just listening. So you really do want to make sure that if you're running on solar, for instance, that your solar charge controller can handle the load that your radio is drawing when it's in the transmit mode. Let me come back over here and see if it's found any messages.
Chris, do you want a peer-to-peer message?
No, you can just send me a regular email message. Although we've got it now. We've got I can see, we can see what that transmit traffic was, and I can go ahead and abort this because I don't need to tie up the gateway with that traffic. That's actually another really good thing, and it's something that David ran into and I ran into as well, because I had to ask him, like, hey, how do I abort my message? Because here's my Winlink window. And I couldn't see how to abort the message. And actually, David, when he was working with it, he couldn't see how to even start the message. And the answer is really remarkably simple. You just take your Winlink message window or your Winlink session window, and you just drag it out wider. And look, you can see some of these other buttons that are over here. So there's an abort button. There's a start button right in there.
Let me ask, and I think, Mike, you addressed this in the chat. Is it better when you want to cease a session to use stop or abort?
It really does. Look, there's two. The software is not exact. You can hit stop when connected to a gateway, and if both ends are reliably connected, to stop after about three transmissions, you'll stop the gateway, and the gateway will shut down and not continue. But it doesn't always work. I prefer abort, because it's instant transmission. If I'm at such a weak signal that I have to end it now on my end, it's probably going to just be nothing if I hit stop for the other end. So I use abort. But you guys at point to point, use abort, never use stop.
Okay.
I'm looking down here to see if I can find, there's a gateway that I can oftentimes hit who's in Canada. Oh, there. I think it's this one. Oh, nope, not that one. I was looking for a V.
Chris, if you click on the call sign column, it will sort by call sign.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is kind of fun. This was something else that I wanted to point out. Any of these you can click on it. It'll tell you the distance. It'll sort by that column. So one of the things that I tried the other day, I went over to distance, and sorted it by distance because I wanted to see what was the furthest gateway that I could hit. And I'll scroll all the way down on this list, and I can see coming from me, there's a ZS5 BG, which is in South Africa. And I wanted to see, hey, am I able to get a hold of them? They're on the 80-meter band. I was super excited. I could see them here. So I went ahead and selected on them, and I double clicked, and it brought up all of the information for me right here. All of that's super ready to go. I'm really excited. I'm ready to do some testing on here. And I click the start button, and I get this pop-up right away. Winlink is smart enough because it knows what your grid square is. It knows where you're transmitting from, and it threw up a warning immediately. Invalid frequency warning, center frequency 3602.500 with bandwidth 2320 hertz will result in all or part of your signal falling outside of the legal US frequencies allowed for digital operations. Right away, it tells you, hey, there is a problem. If you click yes, you're going outside of what is legal for your band. Now, in an emergency, if you've got, you're trying to communicate via any means possible, different situation. But when you are just following along testing, you want to make sure you are staying within your legal transmit levels. And so thanks again to the Winlink team for doing things like this to help keep us safe and keep us all legal. So I'm going to say no to that, and it clears that out. So nice little feature that's just kind of buried in here with HF, especially as you start really kind of using this. You're hopping around to different bands, you're trying different things, you're making sure that you're able to make your connections as need be.
Chris?
Yeah.
That brings up a point. One of the users out there had posted he likes VARA point-to-point at 500 because it's very fast. That's a fallacy. 500 is just a limiting factor for your bandwidth for those portions of the band that you're not allowed to be out of. VARA is VARA. It doesn't care if it's 500 hertz, 2300, or 2700. The speed will adapt accordingly. All it does is limit your speed to 500. You can go to 2300, and if you can't do more than 500, that's all it's going to do. And that's also what you do on your end, not necessarily the other end.
Excellent. So I've gone back into my channel select. I've come back up here. I was looking to see if I could find that.
Chris, why don't you run 2750, the tactical mode?
2750 in tactical mode. Say that again to me. How do I do that?
Okay, go to your God damn it. Get out of that menu.
Yep.
Go to settings.
Yep.
VARA TNC setup.
Yep.
Click on 2750 channels and select session bandwidth 2750.
Session bandwidth 2750. Oh, look at that.
Okay, now go save that, update it.
Uh-huh.
Now go to your 7300 and make sure your RX filter is at least 2.9 or 3 kilohertz.
Okay, so my RX filter, that's up here under the filter.
Yeah, hit filter one. What is this set for?
I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It's on filter 1, so my filter
You're good.
You're
good. Don't touch anything. You can now operate 2750, provided, and remember, it takes 2 to tango, so the other guy's going to have to be doing the same thing. This works for point to point. You won't see a lot of 2750 operation because not many people are running radios capable of it. Some of the Kenwoods can, newer icons can. As long as the radio is capable of receiving a filter of 2.9 or 3 kilohertz, you can do 2750, but it takes 2 to tango. You guys can play with this and point to point. You may see some surprising results.
All right. Do you have, David, do you want to set your...
Yeah, Chris, let me set it up. I'm going to VARA TNC.
Actually, or do you want to, let's try to, I can try to...
And I am now set up on 2750, and
right.
I have...
Let me close this window.
I have a peer-to-peer session ready to go. Somebody is on the frequency.
Okay, 1 second. Let me create a new message to you. I'm going to say KK.
And keep in mind, you can leave it at 2750 forever. because
Yeah.
it's going to adapt to the speed that you're connected to.
Okay, that sounds good. Well,
And
I've
David,
got it
you
on
changed
a-
yours to 2750 also?
yes, I've got it on a Flex 6500, so it should be able to meet all those parameters, or it should.
All this information is contained in the RMS Express help file.
Yes,
Please view it and you'll
yes, I hear you're familiar with that.
Send pizza to go with my beer.
Okay.
So I'm going to click the send as. I'm going to change that over to a peer-to-peer message. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to post that to the outbox. So it's sitting in my outbox. I'm going to come over here to my open session, VARA HF.
But also keep in mind what frequency you're using. It has to be legal for your region for the 2750, the wider width. If you're not restricted to 500 hertz. I'm not bound by those stupid FCC rules there in Mexico.
That's
So,
why you're there.
Yep. So I've got my I'm set to 7102.5.
And there is
frequency you're
there
on?
is someone on that frequency trying
Okay.
to connect, but
Let's try going down to 7099. Let's see if we hear him anymore.
7099.
I'm still hearing him. Oh,
And I know people are asking, why isn't 2750 the default? It's because the FCC rules. There are some sections of 40-meter band and others you can only operate 500 hertz and in.
Got it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not a default. You have to be aware of your area and your rules.
So there we are. We're at 7. I'm not hearing anybody. You hearing anybody, Dave?
No. Shall I start the session?
Go ahead and start the session.
All right, here we go.
And so notice here, mine just went to channel busy, and you can see there's a little blip of traffic that's going on right there. I'm going to come over here and bring my radio up. You can see there's my radio is actually receiving some traffic. Bloop, came in.
There we go.
See my
We
answered.
are connected at
We are
2750.
connecting. I'm not making the connection, but David is establishing that connection. And let's see what kind of traffic we're getting.
We have
270
level,
bits per second.
Yep.
Because of the band conditions, it's locked you down to 2300 right now.
Oh,
But you'll be running 2750 when you have better conditions.
and you can see that right here at the base of the
That's
VARA
correct.
window. There it says 2300. That's what he's talking about right there. And so we established that. Is there anybody who is who's out there, maybe somewhere in maybe the middle of the country, maybe up in the Washington, Oregon area that is set up for VARA that would like to try and send some traffic to us? Go ahead and let us know in the chat on Zoom if you are. And I'll give you a frequency. You'd need to be able to set up on the 40-meter band. I could also jump down to the 20-meter band, but that can also be kind of
Who's that?
busy. Let's see. Yeah, and our session ended. So good. Cool. What have I missed, guys? KI0KY in Colorado.
N6 KZB. We are connected.
At 2750, look at your monitor window.
Wow.
Cool. And so that's the traffic that we're probably hearing right now. You're on the 799, 7099.
I'm going to go ahead and abort. And
Okay.
Yeah, at 2750. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Jose's done a lot of work with VARA.
KI0KY, do you want to send me just a very simple message? Send it to W0DHG. I'm sorry, send it to W6AH.
Who are you?
Who am I? Very simple message if you can. Go ahead and make sure you're on VARA. Set your center frequency to 7099. You're going to plug in my call sign here. Make sure you're in the switch to the make sure you're in the peer-to-peer session. And I'm listening on that frequency. So go ahead and try and send me a message, and we'll see if we can see if I can hear you, and see if we can get a connection.
Drum roll.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm listening to.
I'll just kind of leave this up here. We'll see if it comes in. So yeah, so Steve, if you're there, go ahead and try and send a message. And then while he's working on that, trying to send, no joy. Okay. Anyone else who's out there who's got an HF set up that wants to try and send a message to one of us?
Oh,
Ed's hearing you. Oh, so
my goodness. Well, 40 meters going east is good. Wow. Okay.
Nothing coast to coast. So KI0KY, if you can try and send a message to N1EW, November 1 Echo Whiskey.
On the same frequency, right?
On the same, yeah, you can use the same frequency, 7099, and let us know what the results are. And see if we can get
It's almost like you're a matchmaker.
I know, right? That's kind of fun. Making connections here. So and they're saying joy. Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
N1EW and KI0KY from Colorado and N1EW. Where are you located, Ed?
Bill WA6SW has his hand raised.
Oh, hey, what's up? What's up, Bill? Here, let me go ahead and click the allow you to unmute. So
hey, Bill.
You can ask a question. Hey, what's up, Bill? You should be able to unmute now. Oh, you're in Chandler, Texas. Oh, I should be able to hit you. Or Ed, were you hearing our traffic from here when we were transmitting? Very slow data, though. No, you weren't hearing us. Okay. Yeah, propagation. I'm surprised. Normally, I've got great propagation over to Texas on a regular basis.
I'm back, Chris. Sorry.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Good. So I created a peer-to-peer HF message, posted it to the outbox, opened a VARA HF peer-to-peer session, opened it. The window comes up. I put in your call sign, the frequency you guys are working on right now. And I had this problem during the Aries exercise last year where I don't see a send option in the peer-to-peer session window.
Make sure your window is dragged out wide enough to the right. And you should see a start button.
Darn.
Yeah. Now that's something I would do, Bill.
that literally happened yesterday.
I will get caught by that every time. And you know, I'll say, why did the development team take the start button out? Where did it go?
Where did it go?
And so the frequency is clear now, correct?
Yeah. You want to try?
You want to try it? Sure.
Go ahead.
Hear it.
I hear channel busy, and I got a signal in.
Ta-da!
I hear both sides.
Where are you located?
East Valley.
East Valley.
San Fernando
Look at
Valley.
that. It's gotten this. The data's coming in back and forth. right there. Oh, look at that. That's a good connection. Sure. Download checked message. Loop. We're connected at 2300, 549 bits per second. Not bad for HF. Oh, we got the little cross pattern. Super fun. There we go. It connected. I should be able to come over here, and there you are.
So waiting an hour and a half was good.
There we are, loud and clear. Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Hey,
I did the very same thing last week. It just, you know, Chris and I were experimenting, and I go, Chris, there's no start button. What? And I'm just freaking out. Well, I just needed to make the window a little bigger.
That's super cool. Anyone else want to play? That's super awesome.
Well, I think that's a pretty good
mention monitor window and listen for traffic. Yes. Yeah. So over in the VARA, you can click on here, and you do have a waterfall over here. If you're not seeing your waterfall, just go up to settings, make sure your waterfall is set to on. It's right here in the settings. So you can see your waterfall right here, and you would be able to see some kind of traffic that's coming in. You also want to make sure on your radio, you're kind of watching. Don't necessarily always trust what your waterfall is seeing here, because you might just not be able to see all of the traffic that's going on there. One of the things that I like to do to really help and make sure that I'm seeing everything that I think I'm seeing. If you're in the scope view and you go to the second page, you can click on REF, which is reference. And if I wasn't getting traffic coming in right now, you click on reference, you can use the main dial, and you can increase the gain of what your waterfall display is seeing. So you can oftentimes see weaker and weaker signals coming in your waterfall. A lot of times I'll run my 7300 with the reference set up to about minus 11 dB. And that really helps me to see in the waterfall where some of those weaker signals are coming in. It looks like that traffic was finished.
That's VARA traffic you're seeing now on your waterfall.
Yeah,
that's me.
So I'm gonna dial mine up to a little bit higher range. I'll come up here to maybe 10.5 or 11 dB. And you notice how my waterfall got really dark, where it's got a lot of congestion going on in there. It's not showing the real congestion. I'm just amplifying what the waterfall is actually seeing, so I can see a little bit weaker signals. And you can see there's little tiny blips that are coming on. There's a much stronger signal over there, but you're able to see this a little bit easier. It's one of the tricks that I use when I'm operating just sideband, but it also works here in VARA as well.
Very cool.
That's super cool. I'm going to turn my reference back down to a little bit lower level. There we go. And again, I really like to leave my radio in this mode when I'm operating.
I have a question for Mike, if he's still available. In VARA FM, at the bottom of the screen, it shows traffic other than intended for you. In other words, it's listening to the channel and it shows you who's transmitting. Is there a technical reason why that isn't done for VARA HF?
Well, you'd have to ask Jose that, and he's been asked before, could he implement that? He says it can't be done. Something about something, I don't understand. So no.
Yeah, because that's really handy to sniff out stations that you can hear.
Well, you can go to your, there's a trick in VARA HF. Let me go with my VARA HF, make sure I don't make an ass out of myself. Log. Okay. If you open the VARA HF log, open the log on your VARA HF.
Let me go to
Open
that.
your VARA HF.
So I got to go to VARA HF. Mm-hmm.
Now open it, go down to your VARA HF
Yep.
window.
Yep.
Your VARA
VARA
program.
window.
Your VARA program.
Oh, the VARA window. Yeah.
Okay, and see log.
Oh, yeah. Up here, log. Go ahead and click on that.
It'll show you, you can see traffic there, but it won't do, you see all your stuff that's going on. It'll give you all your average DBMs, your rates and everything.
It's just not live updating like Sound Modem does when the packet traffic is coming in. Is that correct?
Yeah, VARA FM window works different. It's more, it'll capture everything. VARA HF won't. And Jose tried to explain it to me and I gave up.
Nice.
Yeah, the log is handy though for troubleshooting.
Let's have a look and see where folks are who have checked in today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this. Also before folks kind of check out of here, I wanted to bring up one other thing before we do that checking of the log, and that is the special event station.
And
so
you want to unpin Dan, Chris?
Oh yeah, let me unpin Dan so everybody can see this a little bit clearer. Pull him down. Thank you. It's really hard today because I've got my computers all on the wrong side. So if you go to WaveTalkers and you plug in wavetalkers.com/B2V, as in Baker2Vegas .php, it will take you to this page, and we've just gotten this published, and I haven't linked it. I'll link it on to the home page, but we've been approved to run a special event, HF portable gateway for Baker2Vegas, and what we would like is for it's going to be operating on 80, 40, 20, and 17 meters. And we'd like everybody to send us a standard Winlink check-in, the ones that you do for the weekly ones every time we do one of these episodes. Send between 0800 Pacific time on Thursday, April 7th, and 0800 Pacific time, Sunday, April 10th. We're going to have the gateway will be operating continuously during that time. Send us a standard Winlink check-in. Send it to the tactical call sign WaveTalkers. You don't have to send it to all four of us because we're actually going to all be at the event. The guys are going to be at different stages. So just send it to the tactical call sign WaveTalkers. If you can send it through our portable gateway, please do. We're going to have the frequencies are all noted down here, what frequencies we're going to be operating on, and the antennas that we're going to be using. We're going to be using a Chameleon MCOM3 for the 80 and the 40 meter band, and we're going to be using one of the new Buddy Pole Buddy hexes for 20 and 17 meters. We're going to have that for the most part pointed kind of due east into the middle of the country, into the middle of the US. But if we have any folks that are coming in externally or not in that range, send me, you can send me an email link, send me an email or just send me some Winlink traffic and let me know when you're going to try and connect. The Buddy Hex will be up on 20 and 17 meters, and I can adjust the rotation of that so we can try and get a better connection to you for the skywave connection on 20 or 17 meters. There's our center frequencies that we're going to be operating on. The call sign of the gateway is going to be my call sign, W6AH. We're going to have the tactical call that you're going to send the message to WaveTalkers. It's going to be running only on VARA HF. I'm not going to run other modes on it. And here's our operating schedule that we're going to have. The dates are all tied to the Pacific Daylight Time, but I've got the UTC adjustment times over here. So we'll run 80 meters for the most part in an NVIS configuration overnight. We'll switch over at about 7 a.m. local time to the 40 meter band. We'll operate on 40 meters for about 3 hours. Then we'll switch over to the Buddy Hex. We'll be on 17 meters for about 3 hours. Then we'll switch over to 20 meters. We'll be on there for about 4 hours in the afternoon. Then as the evening starts to set in, we'll go back to 40 meters on the MCOM3. The MCOM3 should do both NVIS and some longer distance. So we should have some pretty good connections there. So we'll be on 40 meters for about 3 hours until around 2000 hours local time. We'll switch back over to 80 meters at that point. And so we're going to rotate over the course of from about 8 a.m. Pacific on Thursday, April 7th. And we'll shut the gateway down on that Sunday at about 9 a.m. in the morning. So try and send us a check-in. What we would love to be able to see, we've got our goals down here at the bottom. For the U.S., we'd love to get one check-in from all 50 U.S. states. We would love to receive at least as many check-ins from different U.S. counties as there are teams competing in the 2022 Baker2Vegas race. We're expecting in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 teams to be competing. And then we would love to receive as many Winlink check-ins as there are individual runners in the race. So each team, however many teams we end up with, each team is going to have 22 runners. So do the math and figure out how many we would love to be able to get in that time. And our DX goals, we'd love to get 20 different countries or DX entities, one for each of the 20 different stages of the race. Now, we clearly are not going to get all of that traffic in through our HF gateway because not everybody is set up for that. So if you do not have HF and you're not set up for that, don't worry about it. Send us a Winlink check-in. You can do it via Telnet if that's the only way that you have available to you, or any of the other modes that Winlink uses. So Packet or VARA FM, or if you've got Pactor, you can send your check-in, just send it to the tactical call sign WaveTalkers on whichever band that you have access to, whichever kind of frequencies that you have, but send us that Winlink traffic. If you are at the race and you're supporting one of the stages and you can set up a portable Winlink station, please do. Please send us some traffic during the course of the time that you're set up there. And if you do, please include the stage that you're at. So we're going to do some mapping of that. We want to see where the traffic is all coming in at. We're not going to do a show on April 10th because all of us are going to be at the event and we're all going to be driving back from the desert
exhausted.
We're going to be pretty exhausted. So we will do a wrap-up show the next week, and we're going to shoot a lot of footage of the overall setup. You can see one of our overall goals that we have for the gateway is to test the viability of a long-term, about a 4-day, fully off-grid, fully solar-powered station. We're getting some great support from the folks at Chameleon, or the folks at we are getting support from the folks at Chameleon and Buddy Pole for the antennas that we're running. We're also getting support from Bioenno Power and from Power Film Solar to make sure that we can have our station up and running. It's going to maintain. This is the actual station that we're going to be running for the event. We're going to be using the ICOM 7300 as our primary HF station. This is the little box, and next week we're going to configure this up to be a gateway. We'll have solar charge controllers, and we'll have batteries supplied by Bioenno Power, as well as our Power Film Solar stations to be able to keep the batteries topped up and running the entire time. And we are super excited to be able to do that. So again, the location for this, I'll put a link to it in the chat, but it's wavetalkers.com/B2V, Baker2Vegas.php, and all the information is there. We really encourage everybody to try and check in and help us out. In the comment section, just tell us what your operating conditions are, your whatever transceiver you're using, power level, antenna, that kind of thing. But definitely try and send that check in to us. And again, the center frequencies are all located here. You can go back and rewatch this episode to see how to do that. We will be set up as a gateway, but if you do the open session and you look for the channel selection, you more than likely are not going to find us in there because it's just going to be a portable one. So just dial in the settings here. The gateway will be W6AH. What the center frequency is that you're operating. I'll increase do a better job of adding the notes here.
Chris,
And
comment.
yeah, go ahead.
I can show you how to configure the software so you can propagate everyone's channel list and how to delete when you're not wanting to have those channels listed.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you. We'll touch. I'll have my people get in touch with your people. We'll do lunch or something like that.
For a small fee.
For a small fee. All right, cool.
Make it a 12-pack instead of a 6.
For the common user, if they go to the channel list and see what you're operating, you can even indicate what your times you're operating. All your frequencies can be listed. That'll work as well.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Cool.
God
So
bless
let me. Thank you. Bless you too. Thank you.
Chris, in the chat is a very good question because I know you're thinking about this. How much battery capacity are you taking for those 4 days?
That's a great question. I'm going to have a 80 amp hour battery that'll be the primary. I'm going to do a whole show about the actual setup, and then I'm going to have a 50 amp hour as on a backup. So Buddy Pole is going to send us one of their power. What is it called? The Power Plus, which is different from the Power Mini. So what I've got right here is the Power Mini. This does solar charging. The Power Plus works as a UPS. So I'll have the primary battery with the solar chargers running into the DC on the Power Plus. And then that will, if we draw down, so if the gateway ends up being super popular and drawing out the power, I'm going to primarily be running at about 50 watts on here. Then if we do draw down, the Power Plus should automatically switch over to an auxiliary battery for us. And if I need to, I can run with 2 30 amp hours and just kind of constantly swap them back and forth, although I don't think that would get me through the night. What I did come up with, and I can talk about this more on another show. But I did a talk. I do a talk on solar and emergency power, and I created a kind of a rough calculator. It's just a spreadsheet that's I can share a link to that. That tells you roughly what your transmit and what your receive power draw is, and how many amp hours your battery is, and it'll calculate roughly with a duty cycle about how long you can expect to keep that station on the air for. So that's the calculations that I've done to be able to come up with what those values are.
Cool.
But we should have about 240 watts of solar charging capability, which is roughly about 15 amps of solar charging capacity. So it should keep the batteries topped up at float all day long. That's why I've been running this to be able to check and watch my monitor and really monitor the power usage of the radio and the gateway and the display. So I'm just constantly collecting data over the next couple of weeks to make sure that I'm going to keep within my power budget for what I'm trying to accomplish here.
So you really are going to have major draw after the sun goes down, but when the sun's up, you'll be at float for the most part.
I should be at float. And so part of the challenge with running a solar station, especially if you're trying to get through the night, because you're going to be operating overnight, is you can't just plan on getting yourself to dawn. You've got to have enough capacity in your battery to get you through a good portion of the morning as well, because once the sun does come up and you start charging, you're going to be charging at a much lower level than you are at as the day goes on. So you got to make sure your battery capacity is up high enough to get you through the dark hours as well as the early morning hours, when your battery is generally, your solar panels are making more power than you're using to start getting that charge set up on those. So we're gonna do a lot more on solar and solar communications. I've been using solar for a lot of years. Back in the late 90s, I did a sailing trip where I sailed to the Bahamas for a month, and on a little 27-foot trimaran. And we ran our water maker, all of our communications, all of our satellite navigation, and all of our other electronics off of 4 solar panels that kept us alive. And when you're making all of your own water, you're really conscious about how you're managing your solar budget. So that was kind of one of the first times that I really lived off of solar power for an extended period of time. And I have mentioned I lived on a boat for about 12 years. And solar and living on 12 volts is definitely it's a different kind of way of dealing with things. So let me go over real quick and let's map out and see who checked in today. I'll do one more telnet check to see where that is, because we've gone way over time. I just oh my goodness, look at that, we're at 2 hours. Goodness gracious, this is a long one here. And then we got a few more check-ins. Perfect. Download those. And then let's bring it up on the map. Once we get our connections complete, there we go. Disconnect. Close that. Bring up the map. And I'm going to come down here to the Winlink check-ins. Go to my Google and display maps. Set the filter. We're looking at the last 4 hours or so. So that should be just today. And we'll blow that out to full screen. And let's see, I got to drag with the right mouse button. I'm going to zoom out and see how we did.
All right.
Look at that. All right. We got a check in from Puerto Rico. Thank you very much. Whiskey Papa 4 Oscar Hotel. Our friend Bill out in Hawaii. Kilo Hotel 6 uniform. Aloha. We've got Mexico down here. Thank you, Mike. We've got some friends to the north here in Canada. Victor Alpha 3, Quebec Tango. Thank you very much. Check in from Germany. Delta Germany 1, Germany Hotel Radio. Thank you very much for checking in there, and check-ins from all across the U.S. Look at this. We've got stations down in Texas over here, K04L. We got up here, KC1, KMM, all over the place. Let me zoom in a little bit on that. So that is super awesome. Love seeing that. There we go. There's our check-ins that we've got. We still have 36 people here inside the Zoom. That's awesome. Cool. Thank you guys for hanging around. And John saying, once again, his ICOM is not showing up. Interesting. We've been running into that. Have you? Let's see.
You want to check your list, and we'll give this 30 seconds. KC5LAA.
Yeah, KC5LA. What we'll do is we'll open it up in the after party. I'll have you share your screen.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can go through some of your settings and figure out what's going on with that. I know you had sent us a message saying, hey, you were still having some issues with that showing up, and we will try and troubleshoot that. Let me bring the guys back up on screen, and let me just go back to my camera. I'll turn that off. So we've got that. We'll come back up here and go around for any closing thoughts that we have before we hop off of the live stream. David, any thoughts?
Fine presentation, Mr. Mattia. Very thorough. We're all beginning to experiment with HF more and more, and it's fun. It really is fun, and it's so state of the art in terms of emergency communication. If this part of the world loses internet, loses whatever, for whatever reason, we know we can send a message and a resource request 200 miles away, 300 miles away, and that's the key often to saving life and property.
Thank you. Dan, any closing thoughts today?
Like every week I learn some stuff, which is always great. And you did a great job on that. That's sort of soup to nuts on HF. Hopefully we'll get, I know last week we got a few people who had not ever connected or used Winlink. We got a few of them set up. So there are some newbies on here. And I'm sure we'll get a few people going on HF because of this. And that's the goal. We all learn from each other.
Excellent. Yeah, with the question that we started off with, what do you consider yourself as a type of user? I mentioned at the beginning, I consider myself still to be in that beginner to intermediate stage, because there is so much to learn with operating on HF. It really is about your antenna. It's about propagation. It's about all the different settings that you have to be able to deal with. I've spent a lot of time. A lot of people don't think that like FT8 is a great thing. I use a lot to just figure out and try and understand propagation better, and see who I can connect with and where and from what kind of distance, and change the antennas. It's a really easy way to get in and use things like that PSK reporter and WhisperNet to be able to start to see where you're able to communicate, how far you're able to do, and then try things. The other day, David and I hopped on for like an hour or two and just practiced back and forth until we were able to send our peer-to-peer traffic back and forth. And because of where we both live, there's no way for us to do that via simplex on VHF or UHF. And so it was wonderful to be able to find out that we could use HF communications to be able to send traffic via NVIS and do that. So with that, I will say thanks everyone for joining us. We really, and I got to say also thank you to all of our people who are supporting us on WaveTalkers using the buy us a coffee. The coffees that you're buying us really are helping to put together all of this gear and helping to put together the communications and the support, the content that we're creating, and also just pay for all of the infrastructure that it's taking to be able to put the shows on that we're using to get things out. So thank you very much. If you find what we're doing helpful, please consider going on to WaveTalkers. There's a little coffee cup down in the corner. Anything that you send over really does help to keep all of this stuff up and running. So thank you very much.
Thanks to the Winlink development team. Mike, thanks for chiming in. Steve, I think you're out there too. You guys are just tremendous. It's we learn something every time we speak to you, and thank you for your support too.
Absolutely.
God bless you.
All right. So with that, and if you're watching us on one of the social media channels, please give us the like and ring the bells and all those kinds of fun things, because that really does help the channel. If you're watching us in the Zoom, you can go and check out the YouTube channel and give us a like on some of this content, because it really helps to share the content that's out there. I see Steve is wanting to hop in with some kind of a comment. So Steve, you should be able to unmute yourself here. Before
I just want to say I've never used VARA. I just loaded it, got a registration key, put it in, and have used it about 3 times now. It's nice.
It's pretty cool.
I guess I have it configured right. I just pushed a bunch of buttons and it worked.
That's a pretty successful test.
That's how we all did it.
It's a heck of a lot cheaper than a Pactor modem. I still want to try and do a show where we talk about and use Pactor, but I don't have a modem for it.
There's a difference.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
but I'll get with the Mike Burton or Phil Sheridan and make sure that I'm tuned up and optimized and hot to trot and all that stuff. Cool. And then I'll try. Is anybody on here have a RMS on the air? A VARA RMS?
We will certainly have one on the air for the Baker2Vegas race, and I would love to get a check-in via VARA HF.
Well, I'll be happy to try if you just let me know where it is and when to do it, and I'll. If you got to write it down, I can't remember anything anymore.
Are you going to run Pactor?
I'm sorry.
On that RMS of yours, are you going to run Pactor?
I'm only going to have VARA HF running on for the gateway.
Sorry.
Why don't you put them both on?
Run Pactor.
You could put them both on.
I could put them both on if I had a backdoor modem. I don't have a backdoor
I know
modem.
somebody that can loan you one
Oh.
when is the date of this?
This let me
3
bring
weeks.
that back
In
up.
3 weeks.
It's it's really soon.
April 7th, 8th, 9th.
Yeah, I'm heading out to the desert on April 6th. And it's gonna be on the air April 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And I'll send you the link for this. The URL is going to be wavetalkers.com/B2V Baker, the number 2 Vegas.php. And all of the information about the frequencies we're going to be on and the times and so forth are all listed there. But I will send that. I'll send that to you as a email, Steve.
Okay, let me see if I can find
it.
somebody to loan you a modem, and if you need help, there's I can give you 2 or 3 people that can assist you getting backdoor up and running. It just as easy.
Yeah. All right. That would be great.
Well, our friends in Germany have posted in the chat. I don't understand or read much German, but I do understand this. Danke from Deutschland, from DG1GHR, Chris.
Oh yeah, I would have to hit that into Google Translate pretty quickly to be able to get what that is. I have been able to send emails back and forth with him using Google Translate, where he sends me the Winlink traffic and I can copy it and I can paste it over. So,
or we can ring up Oliver. That's probably easier.
We can ring up Oliver and have Oliver do a little change for us. So
Oliver translate.
If you send me email about that, maybe I can get a modem.
Yeah, I'd have to double check. I'd have to double check because we are only approved right now to run VARA HF for this. So in order to change a mode, I would have to get approval to do that. So
is that from the FCC?
It's from the race comms. So that's running the races. That's running the race. So we sent in a proposal, so we were able to get approval for the communications that we're running. So, but I can follow up with you afterwards and we can find that out.
And you could have a session on dual modes.
Yeah, we can do that anyway.
Yeah,
we may not be able to pull it off for this one, but we'll talk. We'll talk.
Bill has his hand raised again.
Oh, hey, what's up, Bill? Let me hit the little mute yourself. All right, you should be able to unmute yourself, Bill.
I did. Just wanted to let you know, thank you very much. 1 and 2, I sent my check-in to you.
Oh, awesome.
Excellent.
Let me switch over
So
to
now
that.
you know exactly where.
Perfect. Let me come back over here. I'll do one more check. What the heck? We're just going to keep the show going because apparently it's what we do. Open the telnet session. Let's see if we get one more coming in here. Yep, there it is. WA6SW. Download that check-in. Receive message. There we go. Done. Close. Bring the map back up. Yes, please display the map. And
Zoom in.
It's amazing that Jose has programmed this in VB6, which is pre.net.
Wow.
That's just incredible.
Really
Bill,
good.
I don't know about any of that, but it sure works well.
Yeah, Bill, where are you out?
North Hollywood.
Oh, you're in North Hollywood. Oh, okay. So I'd have to zoom in to find you.
Valley Village, as it's now known.
Let me come zoom in a little bit tighter. Let's see if that see if it mapped you in here. Zoom in.
For those not in the LA area,
There you are.
LA instituted a concept called neighborhood councils after the San Fernando Valley threatened to secede from the city because we were getting ignored. We were funding most of the city, but getting little of the services. So they created neighborhood councils. There's now, I think, 99 neighborhood councils. And as part of that, a lot of the communities changed their names. Communities that had maybe less than stellar reputations. So right next to me, it used to be Van Nuys, and now it's Lake Balboa. So
What was wrong
Excellent.
with
So-
Van Nuys? I like Van Nuys.
Van Nuys. There still is Van Nuys, but North Hollywood, part of North Hollywood became Valley Village.
Ah, doctor.
The 3-hour tech session. Thanks, Lloyd. Nice. All right. With that, let me go ahead and shut.
done.
I
We
think-
got to be done, brother.
We got to be done. I'm going to shut down the live stream. So thanks. I see some people there on YouTube. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and shut that down. Thank you very much.